Quickly, before we get into this video, it would mean a lot if you hit the subscribe button. We're getting so close to 1,000 subs, and I would really appreciate it. But anyways, let's get on to the video. Alright, we are back for my predictions and full card breakdown of UFC 299, Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera 2. And this is one of the best UFC cards in a while. A lot of people are saying it's better than UFC 300. I don't know if I'd agree with that, but it's certainly close. The early prelims and prelims are amazing. The main card is amazing. We got some very good prospects like Robelis de Spain, who is making his UFC debut. We also got Michel Pereira on the early prelims. We also got Ion Cutelaba versus Felipe Lins headlining the early prelims, and then these prelims are amazing. Every single fight on these prelims would be on the main card of like 60 to 70% of pay-per-views. The veteran Pedro Munoz versus Kyler Phillips is a great fight. Mateusz Gamrot versus the legend RDA is an okay fight. It's kind of a weird one. You would think Gamrot should be looking up in the rankings, but instead he's fighting the number 11 guy. We also got Caitlin Chukagian, or Caitlin Sermonara, now taking on Macy Barber. That's a decent fight. And then we also got Jailton Almeida banished to the prelims after that performance against Derek Lewis. It was a good performance, it just wasn't the most entertaining fight. And he's facing Curtis Blaydes. This is the fight that should have been made. The winner of this fight will probably fight Tom Aspinall sometime in the summer or early fall. And then this main card is amazing. Petr Yan returns against Song Yadong. That's a great fight. Gilbert Burns versus Della Maddalena is an amazing fight. Michael Venom Page is finally making his UFC debut, and he's facing Kevin Holland. This should be a good one. And then the best fight on the whole card, in my opinion, Dustin Poirier versus Benoit, Saint-Denis. And then we also obviously have the main event, Sean O'Malley defending his bantamweight title against Marlon Chito Vera in the rematch, trying to prove that that was a fluke. But let's start with Mateusz Gamrot taking on RDA. RDA is back in the lightweight division. I've always thought he's a better lightweight than a welterweight. He's just too small for the welterweight division. RDA is 39, almost 40 years old, whereas Gamrot is a substantially younger fighter at 33 years old, and RDA has been out of his prime for a while now, whereas Gamrot is in his prime. Now, I do think this is a much closer fight than what most people are saying. They have Gamrot as a minus 350 favorite, which I disagree with, because RDA has good wrestling still, especially in the lightweight division where he's not so undersized. He has pretty good Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and he's a very good striker still. He still has good boxing, still has some decent kicks he can go to. And against Gamrot, who isn't the best striker, does leave some holes with his boxing defense. RDA could counter him. RDA is also a southpaw, but so is Gamrot, so those body kicks from RDA won't be there, but maybe you could switch up to the leg kick. We know Gamrot's going to try and take this fight down because that's where he's going to have the biggest advantage, but RDA's takedown defense, especially in the lightweight division, as I said, isn't bad. He could defend a lot of the shots from Gamrot, but the second this fight touches the ground, Gamrot has the overall grappling advantage for sure. RDA is pretty good on the ground as well. He has decent Brazilian jiu-jitsu, good submission defense, so I don't see Gamrot submitting him, but if Gamrot does take this fight down, most likely with a double leg, I see him controlling RDA on the ground. I don't see RDA working up from the bottom, and on the ground, in his guard, Gamrot could land some ground and pound shots or look to transition into side control or into mount. So in the end, I will go with Gamrot. I think it is much closer than most people are saying. I think Gamrot could struggle on the feet against a guy who is probably the better boxer, but I think once this fight touches the ground, RDA is not working up from the bottom. Gamrot's going to land some good ground and pound and win this fight by a decision. Next, we're going to go to Curtis Blaydes taking on Jailton Almeida. As I said, the winner of this fight will probably fight Tom Aspinall, but this is a tough fight for Almeida. Blaydes is one of the best wrestlers in the division. In fact, I'd probably say he's second behind only John Jones. He has good takedown defense, good offensive wrestling of his own, and he's overall the better striker on the feet, so he could absolutely just defend all the takedowns and outland Almeida on the feet, who isn't the best striker, who does leave his chin exposed at times. So it seems like Almeida has to take this fight down, utilize his Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but how's he going to get this fight down? He has a decent double leg, but against Curtis Blaydes, who, as I said, is one of the best wrestlers in the entire heavyweight division and is also going to be a much bigger guy. Curtis Blaydes is probably, what, 250, 260 pounds? Whereas Almeida's in the 220s. Almeida is a tiny heavyweight. He's smaller than a lot of light heavyweights. So Blaydes is definitely going to have the size and strength advantage, and even if Almeida can get him down, I think Blaydes could work his way up from the bottom. Blaydes is big, hard to hold down. Almeida does have good control. He has good submissions as well, although he couldn't submit Derek Lewis, which makes me wonder if he could even submit Curtis Blaydes. Almeida also doesn't use too much ground and pound, and on the flip side, I think Curtis Blaydes could absolutely take him down. As I said, he has the offensive wrestling, he has the strength, he has 30 to 40 pounds on Almeida, and we don't know where Jailton's takedown defense is. I don't think he's ever been shot on in the UFC. Okay, he did get shot on twice in Dana White's Contender Series against against a guy I have no clue, and he defended one of the takedowns and got taken down once. So I'm sure Curtis Blaydes could get him down if he wanted to and just control him on top, use his strength advantage, use his top pressure, land some ground and pound. And we don't know how Almeida is in his guard. I would assume he's pretty good because of his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background, and Curtis Blaydes would have to watch his neck when he goes for the double leg so he doesn't get caught in a guillotine, or watch the submissions off Almeida's back. But as I said, Blaydes can beat Almeida in the stand-up pretty easily. Almeida's stand-up isn't great. He's fast, he has decent footwork, he has a good front kick, but his boxing isn't amazing. Blaydes is a much better boxer. Almeida leaves his chin exposed, doesn't have great striking defense, and Blaydes hits very hard. Blaydes sticks to the fundamentals, jabs, crosses, some hooks here and there, and I think that will work on Almeida all day. So for my final prediction, I'm definitely going to go with Curtis Blaydes. I think Almeida's going to have a difficult time taking him to the ground because of the size difference, because of Curtis Blaydes' wrestling. I think Blaydes could take Almeida to the ground if he wanted to, but I think more likely than not, Blaydes will just defend all the takedowns and then beat Almeida on the feet, especially in boxing range. At distance, the front kicks could be a little worrying, but once he gets up close, Almeida doesn't have much for him. Almeida gets caught in the pocket. His boxing isn't very technical. He loops on a lot of his shots, and even if Almeida does get Blaydes down, I think Blaydes could absolutely get up from the bottom. So I'm going to go with Curtis Blaydes, and I'll take him by a decision, but I could also see a knockout. And then we're going to go to Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. Yan is returning after a year break after the Merab fight, and hopefully during his year off, he's fixed some of the holes in his game, most notably the slow starts. Yan likes to take the first few rounds off and figure out his opponents. He'll throw out feints, throw out different techniques, different things just to see how his opponents would react so he can pick out his openings. A lot like a boxer would, but in boxing there's 12 rounds. In MMA there's 3 to 5 rounds. Yan is better in 5-rounders because there's more time for him to work with, but this is a 3-round fight, which in my opinion definitely favors Song Yadong, who's a very explosive fighter, very fast, quick combinations in the pocket, very powerful, will mix in takedowns, will mix in kicks as well. Song also has all the momentum going into this fight. He's 5-1 in his last 6, whereas Petr Yan is 1-4 and has lost his last 3, including getting dominated by Merab in his last fight, which was a year ago. It will be interesting to see if either guy attempts takedowns. I think Song is more likely to try and mix it up, but Yan does have very good takedown defense. He has good offensive wrestling of his own. We've seen it in his past fights, and he could use it here against Song Yadong, but I think more likely than not, Yan is going to look to defend the takedowns and keep this standing, make it a boxing match, where Yan will be switching stances. If he switches into southpaw, because he's typically an orthodox fighter, and Song Yadong is also an orthodox fighter, that'll take away Song's outside leg kick, and Song doesn't really throw too many head or body kicks, and it'll make it more of a footwork battle, which I trust Yan's footwork more than I trust Song's footwork. But if they both stay in orthodox, I think those leg kicks are going to be a good weapon for Song here. Yan isn't the best at defending leg kicks. We've seen other guys use it, like Sean O'Malley against Petr Yan, very effectively. And then I think the boxing sequences will be very competitive between these two. These are two of the best boxers in the bantamweight division. Song, as I said, is very explosive, has a ridiculous amount of power, great combinations, whereas Petr Yan is a little more technical. He likes to counterpunch, pick out his shots, pick out his openings, has good boxing defense. One of the only guys I've seen effectively use a high guard in MMA. I think Yan will be able to block and parry a lot of the shots. Now, Song definitely has the power advantage. He hits really hard, but Yan has an amazing chin. And Yan, although he doesn't hit harder, also has a good amount of power of his own. But in the end, this is such a tough one to pick. I think I'm going to stick with Petr Yan. I think Yan is the better fighter overall. I think he is going to start faster. I think he is going to come out more aggressive. I like his boxing defense. I like his ability to pick out his counters on his opponents. And Song does leave a lot of counter shot opportunities. I think Yan will also be able to defend a lot of the takedown Song attempts, maybe even all of them. Yan's takedown defense is very good. So I am going to go with Petr Yan, not confident in this pick whatsoever, and I'll take him by a decision. A very close fight though. Now we're going to move on to Gilbert Burns versus Della Maddalena. Burns is coming back after around a year layoff after the Bilal fight, where he hurt, I believe, his shoulder and actually had to get shoulder surgery on that. But this is an interesting one. I think Gilbert Burns has to take this fight to the ground to win. I don't think he can beat Della in the stand-up. Della Maddalena is an amazing boxer, can switch stances. Burns is fast and powerful, but he's wild. He likes to throw these wide, looping overhands, which leaves room for him to get countered, and we all know Burns isn't great at defending jabs. That's his biggest weakness, especially southpaw jabs. We saw Kamaru Usman drop him with a southpaw jab. We saw Hamzat drop him with a southpaw jab, and Della could switch stances between southpaw and orthodox, and if he switches into southpaw, that southpaw jab is going to be there. He can also shut off the jab of Burns. Burns does have a decent jab of his own, so when they're in opposite stances, Maddalena is going to have an easier time parrying and catching Gilbert's jab. It will also take away the outside leg kick of Burns. Burns does have pretty good outside leg kicks, but it will open up the overhand right for Burns a little more, but he'll have to set it up with more footwork, and Jack Della is better with his footwork. He's better at controlling the outside foot position, and even in orthodox, the orthodox jabs are going to land for Jack Della Maddalena. The right crosses are going to land for him as well. He's just overall the much more technical striker. He's going to be able to pick out his shots against Burns, pick out his counters, and I think he'll piece Burns up on the feet. He just has to watch out for those overhands. So Burns has to take this fight to the ground. Burns does have decent wrestling. It has gotten a lot better throughout his career, and he's obviously an amazing grappler. If he gets this fight to the ground, Maddalena is not going to get back up. But can he take this fight down? How does Jack Della Maddalena's takedown defense look? I've done a lot of tape study on him, and I've watched the Hafez fight a lot, and Jack's takedown defense isn't bad, assuming he actually looks to defend the takedown, because he was pulling the guillotine a lot. And if he does that against Gilbert Burns, Gilbert's absolutely going to be able to take him down, and there's no way he's going to submit Burns with a guillotine, especially with a guillotine. But if he's smart, he works to the underhooks, actually tries to defend the takedowns, I think Burns going to have a real hard time taking him down, especially if Burns is getting pressured. If Burns can pressure Maddalena against the cage and shoot a takedown there, make contact, push him up against the fence, I think he's going to have an easier time taking him down. In the center of the octagon, he's going to have a real hard time taking Maddalena down. And even against the cage, his takedown defense didn't look bad, but it's definitely better in the center of the octagon, and it's easier for Burns to get takedowns against the cage than in the center. And if Burns can take this fight down, he's going to have a massive advantage. He has much better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, I don't know if he's going to submit Jack Della. He doesn't really look for submissions anymore. He's more of a positional grappler, will land ground and pound. And if he does get Maddalena down, he can look to transition. He can control him. I don't see Maddalena getting up from the bottom. But for my final prediction, I'm gonna lean with Jack Della Maddalena. I think he will be able to defend a lot of the takedowns, if not all of them, and I think he'll piece Gilbert up on the feet. I don't think Gilbert has much for him in the boxing. He's fast, he is powerful, and if he lands on Maddalena, he could knock him out, but I trust Maddalena's defense on the feet. He's a much more technical striker. Should be able to piece Gilbert up. The jabs, the crosses, the right hooks, those are all going to land all day. Plus, this is a much older Gilbert Burns. He's, 36, 37 years old, coming off of a shoulder injury that he had to get surgery on and a year layoff. Burns is tough. He does have a pretty good chin, so I don't think Maddalena is going to knock him out, but I think Maddalena will beat him by a decision. Next, we're going to go to Kevin Holland taking on Michael Venom Page. MVP is finally making his UFC debut. I've wanted this guy in the UFC for a long time, and it's finally happening. So we know Kevin Holland is probably not going to take this fight down, which would be a good path for him to take because MVP's takedown defense is not very good. He's not great on the ground. He does have some submissions, but he can definitely get controlled on the ground. And Kevin Holland doesn't have bad wrestling. He has good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but we know Kevin Holland's not going to take this fight down. He refused to take Wonder Boy down, so he'll most likely refuse to take MVP down as well. So that will leave us with a striking match on the feet. And both of these guys are very good strikers, where Kevin Holland is more of a boxer and MVP is more of a kicker, but is more diverse with his attacks on the feet, I would say. They both have a lot of power in their right hands. MVP will switch stances. Kevin Holland will mostly stay in orthodox, but he can switch into southpaw sometimes. And I think the stance switching is going to be a good tactic here for MVP because Kevin Holland doesn't use kicks very well, whereas MVP has very good kicks. So when he's in orthodox and Kevin Holland is also in orthodox, that outside leg kick is going to be there for Michael Page, and that outside leg kick is going to be a massive weapon. We've seen outside leg kicks be used against Kevin Holland before. He doesn't really check leg kicks. He's got those long, skinny legs. But if MVP switches into southpaw, that will open up the body and the head kicks. MVP has amazing kicks. He's very fast with them. He's very explosive, fast on the feet, will dart in and out of range very quickly. He has decent boxing, but he is pretty hittable. He keeps his hands pretty low and his chin pretty high. And Kevin Holland has a lot of power, especially in that right hand. And MVP's chin is not very good. So if Kevin Holland can land a flush right hand on him, I think MVP could go to sleep. But the same can be said about Kevin Holland. Holland does not have great striking defense. He gets pretty wild with his strikes, doesn't use much head movement, doesn't keep his hands too high. And MVP also hits very hard, especially with that right cross, but he also has a lot of power in his left hand. And Holland's hooks can come pretty wide, so that will leave room for MVP to counter him with the jabs and the crosses. And when they're in opposite stances, controlling that outside foot position is going to be crucial, and I think MVP's footwork is way better than Kevin Holland's. So in the end, I am going to go with MVP, and I will take him by a third round knockout. I think the kicks are going to be the biggest weapon here for MVP. When they're both in orthodox, that outside leg kick is going to be there. Kevin Holland will throw some outside leg kicks, but I think they're going to be much more effective for MVP. And if he switches into southpaw, those body kicks and head kicks are going to open up. That will also help shut off the jab of Kevin Holland, which is one of his best weapons. And because Holland's not going to take this fight to the ground, it's going to be a pure striking match, and Holland doesn't have great striking defense. He gets hit a lot. A lot of his shots come pretty wide. Now MVP's striking defense isn't good either, so if Kevin Kevin Holland catches him, he could absolutely knock him out. And MVP doesn't have a great chin, whereas Kevin Holland's chin is pretty good. And when they're on opposite stances, that right cross, which is Kevin Holland's best punch, is going to be there. He's just got to set it up more with his footwork. But MVP has better footwork, as I said. I think MVP will be able to control the outside foot position, land his left cross, land body kicks, mix the body kicks in with the head kicks. So I will go with Michael Venom Page. Moving up the card, we go to our co-main event and the best fight on the entire card, in my opinion. Dustin Poirier taking on Benoit Saint-Denis. It's a 5-rounder as well, which you think should favor Dustin because Benoit has never had a 5-round fight, whereas Dustin has had many. He's only gone 5 rounds once, actually, against Max Holloway, but he has a lot of experience pacing himself for 5 rounds and in training camps for 5 rounds. And I think if he does drag this fight into the 4th and 5th rounds, he's going to have a massive advantage. Dustin's cardio is very good. Now, his striking cardio is better than his grappling cardio. We saw in the Charles and Khabib fight, he was getting tired in the 3rd round, but part of that's because a lot of those fights were taking place on the ground. We saw in the Max Holloway fight, which was pretty much entirely striking, Dustin went 5 rounds easily and was able to keep up with the volume of Max Holloway, who's the best volume puncher and has ridiculous cardio of his own. Whereas on the flip side, Benoit, as I said, has never been in a 5-round fight, and he's very explosive. A lot of what he does is over-exaggerated, very powerful. On the feet, I think Dustin will absolutely have the advantage. He's a much more technical striker. Benoit can be pretty wild and doesn't have very good defense, which we'll talk about in a minute. But Dustin is an amazing boxer, both at range and in the pocket. He has a great jab, a great right hook. In the pocket, he has very good combinations. He's very good defensively. He has a very good guard. He has very good head movement. He has good leg kicks as well, which because they're in the same stance southpaw, those outside leg kicks are going to be there to the power leg of Dustin. We saw him use leg kicks very effectively against Conor McGregor. Benoit does have very good kicks of his own. He has very good head kicks. He knocked Matt Frevola out with a head kick. He has very good body kicks. But because they're both southpaws, those head kicks and those body kicks are not going to be open for Benoit, so he's going to have to use the leg kick. And Dustin has gotten a lot better at checking leg kicks. He's still not great, but we have seen improvement, like in the Conor McGregor fight. And on the feet, Benoit's defense is not very good. He's very hittable. He has a very good chin, but he is very hittable, especially in the pocket. And Dustin is one of the best pocket boxers in the UFC. As I said, he has very good combinations. He'll end him off with a right hook. And on the feet, especially in the pocket, Benoit is just very wild, which leaves openings for Dustin to counter him. And even at range, Dustin is better. With his jab, he could try and counter Benoit trying to come in with the right hook. Dustin has an amazing jab, and Dustin is also typically better against southpaws than against orthodox fighters because he can use that jab. That jab is more open to a southpaw. As I said, Benoit is much better with his kicks, but because they're in the same stance, those kicks aren't as open. So in my opinion, Benoit has to take this fight down. Benoit is very good on the ground. He has very good submissions, very good chokes. He has good wrestling. He's also going to have the size advantage over Dustin. This guy's fought at 170 before, and he's just a huge 155er and a big, strong 155er. And he's a good wrestler as well, so he's got to try and find some way of taking Dustin to the ground, but Dustin's takedown defense has gotten a lot better over the years. And even if this fight does touch the ground, Dustin can absolutely hold his own. He has pretty good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Dustin has a pretty good guillotine, so when Benoit shoots, if he shoots in from a distance, he's got to watch out because Dustin will absolutely pull that guillotine. So a lot of Benoit's takedowns are probably going to have to come more in the clinch. And I think Benoit, especially early on, will be able to take Dustin down just because of his size and strength. But in the end, I am going to go with Dustin Poirier. I watched a few people's prediction videos just to see what people were saying, and every single one of them picked Benoit. And I've gone back and I've watched a lot of Dustin's fights and a lot of Benoit's fights, and I just don't see it. Benoit is very explosive. I think he'll have a lot of success early on in the first round or two. I think he'll be able to take Dustin down, not easily, but I think he will be able to get him down. I think he will be able to control him on top, land some ground and pound, but Dustin does have good jiu-jitsu. He's a hard guy to submit. Dustin also just has pretty decent takedown defense in general. I think he will be able to defend a lot of Benoit's takedowns, and on the feet, I don't think Benoit has much for Dustin. Like I said earlier, Benoit is much better with his kicks than his punches, especially his body kicks and head kicks, but those body and head kicks are not going to be there because they're both southpaws, and Dustin is very good against southpaws. Dustin typically does better against southpaws. He has more experience fighting southpaws than Benoit, and Dustin is just so much better of a boxer. He's so technical. He's so smooth with it. He's a very hard guy to hit, and Benoit's striking defense isn't very good, especially in the pocket, and he can be pretty wild. And as this fight drags on into the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, I think Dustin's going to take over. I don't trust Benoit's cardio at all. So in the end, I am definitely going to go with Dustin, and I will take him by a 4th round TKO. I don't see Benoit keeping keeping up with the volume. And then we go to the main event, the only championship fight on this card. Sean O'Malley defends his bantamweight title against Marlon Cheeto Vera in the rematch. Cheeto knocked him out in their first fight, and ever since then, Sean has been saying that that fight doesn't count. It was a fluke. I'm still undefeated, and now here's his chance to prove that it really was a fluke. But this is a great fight. I've been wanting this fight for years now. It's a fight that will probably take place solely on the feet. Cheeto does sometimes attempt takedowns, and I think he should in this fight. I think he should try and mix it up, although I don't know if he'll get Sean to the ground. I'll talk about that in a second. I think just mixing it up, giving Sean different looks, using the takedowns to set up the strikes could be a good strategy here for him. But Sean's takedown defense has got a lot better. It looked very good against Aljo, although Aljo only shot, what, twice? But if Aljo can't get him to the ground, I doubt Cheeto can. And on the flip side, Cheeto also has pretty good takedown defense, and Sean doesn't shoot takedowns in general. So I think this is going to be a pure striking match on the feet, and I think this will be a good one. Those leg kicks are still there on Sean. Sean has got better at checking them, but he's still not great, and Cheeto has very good leg kicks. He has very good kicks in general. Both of these guys will switch stances. They are both better in orthodox, I would say, but both of them will switch into southpaw, will look to give different angles, and when they're in the same stance, those leg kicks are going to be there for Cheeto, like they were in the first fight, and when they're in opposite stances, those body kicks and head kicks are going to be there for Cheeto. We saw him use the body and head kicks against Dominic Cruz. He knocked Dominic Cruz out with a head kick, and Cheeto just hits ridiculously hard. He knocked Dominic Cruz out with a head kick. He has a lot of power in both of his legs. He has a lot of power in his hands. Look at the Rob Font fight. Pretty much every time Cheeto landed on Rob clean, he was hurting Rob. He was also rocking Sean with ground and pound at the end of their first fight, which shows if Cheeto is able to take this fight down, he could use some good ground and pound on Sean again. But Sean also hits ridiculously hard, especially with that right hand. That right cross is his best punch. It's the same punch he put Aljo down with. It's the same punch he's put pretty much everyone down with. He is one of the only guys in this bantamweight division that can knock someone out with one punch, but Cheeto is very durable, has a very good chin. I don't think he's ever been knocked out, and Cheeto is very hard to hit. He has a very good guard. He's very good at parrying punches, one of the best guys at parrying in all of the UFC. Very good at catching, very good at blocking, shoulder rolling with the punches. Sean is the longer fighter. He's going to look to keep this fight on the outside, use his jab, use his cross, use some kicks as well, teeps to the body, side kicks, maybe some leg kicks of his own. He's going to look to continuously move, use his footwork. I would say he has the footwork advantage. He's definitely faster with his feet. He definitely moves more than Cheeto. And I think O'Malley's going to look to jab, kick, and move, whereas Cheeto's going to look to work to the inside, box O'Malley up close, use some leg kicks and body kicks on the outside, set up the head kicks off those, and then try and work his way into the pocket, use his pocket boxing, use his left hook. He'll dig with that left hook to the body. He'll come upstairs with it. His left hook is probably his best punch, I would say. And I don't know what it is, but O'Malley just doesn't seem to have the best chin to me for some reason. I know he got hit by bombs against Jan. I don't think he ever got dropped, but he definitely got hurt against Jan. I don't know, for some reason I just don't think Sean has the best chin, and Cheeto hits very hard, has one punch knockout power, and if he lands that left hook on Sean, I could see him dropping Sean, and then he could follow him to the ground, potentially look for submission. Cheeto does have pretty good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but Sean also has good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu of his own and good submission defense, but he could definitely look for ground and pound. Cheeto's biggest weakness in this fight is the fact that he starts slow. He doesn't come out with a lot of output. It's the same problem Petr Yan has, and it's the same reason Corey Sandhagen beat him. He likes to take the first few rounds off and figure out his opponents, pick out his openings, and then start to pick it up in the later rounds. But Sean and Corey are very different. Sean is much more of a counter puncher than Corey is, so if Cheeto starts slow and doesn't give Sean anything to counter, it could be a very slow fight at the start, which in my opinion would absolutely favor Cheeto. But if Cheeto does come out aggressive, which I think he might, and he probably should come out faster and more aggressive, that would give Sean more opportunities to counter him, and Sean only needs one. Cheeto does have an amazing chin, but Sean is by far the hardest hitting guy Cheeto's ever fought. So that leads into my final prediction, and I have no clue. I'm sitting here right now having to make a final prediction, and I still don't know who I'm going to pick. I have been leaning Sean for months now, but only yesterday did I start to think, oh, maybe Cheeto's got it. I just have some sort of feeling that Cheeto is going to go out there and beat Sean again. Sean is faster than Cheeto, I would say. He has better footwork. He could absolutely just stick at range with the teeps, the jabs, and the crosses and just move around the cage, which I think is probably Sean's game plan, but Cheeto does still have the leg kicks. If Sean switches or he switches, he does have the body and the head kicks. He's better than Sean in the pocket. He has an amazing chin, great defense, very tough guy to hit, tough guy to finish. He has the 5-round experience. He's gone 5 rounds before, whereas Sean has never gone 5 rounds. Sean has only had 1 5-round fight, whereas Cheeto has had 3, so he has more 5-round experience, and he has the cardio advantage, I would say, but that's just speculation. You know what? I'm gonna stick with Sean. I have a feeling Cheeto's gonna win, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does. does. But rewatching their first fight, and I know Cheeto and Sean have both got a lot better since then, and it's a different fight now. That was 4 years ago. But rewatching their first fight, Cheeto was having a real hard time landing on Sean. Sean was so much faster. He was moving around. I think Sean's going to be able to stick at range, put the jab on him, put the teeps, the front kicks, the side kicks on Cheeto. And even though I think a lot of Sean's punches are going to miss or get blocked by Cheeto, I think the judges will see the activity. I think Cheeto is going to start slow like he does, and I think Sean's going to find those early rounds, and I think Sean's going to win by a decision. I wonder what the odds are on that. I just think Cheeto's going to have a hard time getting on the inside of Sean's jab, but I don't know. I just have a weird feeling that Cheeto's going to win. But those are my final predictions for UFC 299. It is an amazing card, one of the best UFC cards in a long time. I am so excited for like 9 or 10 of the 14 fights on this card. It's amazing. So many great storylines, good striking matches, good wrestling and grappling matches. It's got a bit of everything, and I'm going to cover all the fights after they happen. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. I would greatly appreciate it. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by UFC 300. That's my goal. Turn on post notifications so you never miss an upload. Like the video if you did enjoy. Leave your predictions for this card in the comments down below. I'm very curious to see what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next one.